Welcome back to Chapter 4. In this episode of Jonny's story, he shares with us a very common concern held by many teachers in the profession today, which is the importance of the reference when trying to get out.
I told him all of these things. I remember thinking, this is good, this is because you're getting your side of the story to the head and perhaps he hasn't heard it this way. And then he just looked at me and went, Jonny, you're not giving me anything that I can deal with. Nothing you've just given me I can do anything about. Unless you can get evidence of what you're saying, I've got nothing. And it was again that kind of feeling of like we're back to being sort of broken now because you've laid your heart on the line here and given your side of the story in a very raw way. I'd have to be the greatest actor in the world for what I'm saying to not be true. And your response to that is something I can really do about it. There's no evidence, nothing. And that really, really, really broke me.
I mean, first and foremost, I need a minute to obviously process what you've just said, but what it reminded me of, we've made major leaps when it comes to victim statements, particularly in the world of domestic violence. Can you imagine going into a police station as a broken, for the sake of this story, I'm going to use woman. And a woman says, I have been coercively controlled. I have been financially controlled. I have been beaten. I have had his hands around me, or he's nudged me, or he's punched me and it felt like him in play, but it wasn't. It's left a bruise. He squeezes me a little bit too tight in public if I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. Can you imagine in the 21st century, a police officer saying, you give me nothing there. I'll need photographs. Absolutely not. We've moved on in other sectors of society. We look for different things. That police officer looks for body language, looks for consistency, looks for a whole host of things other than a woman coming in bandages. And what you've just talked about was 1970s attitude to domestic violence.
Yeah. I have said previously that my relationship between me and the academy had stark parallels with an abusive relationship that had coercive and controlling behaviour. Because there's something I need to come on to shortly, but they were able to control my... part of this I haven't brought up. I did get it with the first head, I had a TLR, a small one. It was only about £2,500-3,000 a year. It was to promote business in the school. And the second head took it off me because he said I couldn't handle the role. And I couldn't handle both positions, and that I was out of my depth. And so I'm being financially controlled. I'm being professionally controlled. Emotionally, I'm controlled. And it has those parallels with that controlling and coercive behaviour, which is, let's be honest, is a crime. It's a crime. And it's probably important for me now to bring this next part of the story up because I think it fits well into this controlling and coercive behaviour. I started to look for jobs at other schools. It made sense for me to move on, and my plan was not to go and become a head of history. My plan was make a sidewards step to another academy, become a history teacher at another school. They don't know your history. They don't know anything about you. Just start again. Start again. Some of the mistakes that I may have made, and I made a few, we can rebuild from that position. Improve your marking, make lessons a little bit, maybe listen to what staff are saying a little bit more. You're unlikely to come across somebody this abrasive in another school. So you'll rebuild, and you'll speak the right language, and you'll rebuild. And what started to happen, and this would have happened throughout 2018 and 2019, was I would go to job interviews, and I would do the lesson, teach it well, and then I would go through to the interview part, and I felt that I'd done it that many times that I was really good at it. I knew all the answers. I knew the safeguarding answer off by heart. I knew all the sort of stuff to say about fitting into the school and going to the right things and taking on roles and all the kind of stuff that you need to say, and I gave it with confidence. And I thought, I nailed that. Absolutely nailed that. And every single time I'd get a call that went, "Hi, Johnny, it's so-and-so from the school. I'm just letting you know, unfortunately on this occasion, you didn't get the job, but we thought you were a wonderful candidate and we wish you all the well for all the best for the future." And once that's happened once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, of course, as everybody will know in education, I think you usually get about 2 days to go on interviews. And then by the time in a term, by the time you get to your third one, it's coming out of your pay because you've gone beyond that allowance. And then there's the element of embarrassment because I have to keep saying to staff, "Yeah, I didn't get the job. Yeah, just they didn't want me on this occasion, whatever." But it was at one of the final ones. They sat there at the end of the interview and the head of the school sat there and went, "Listen, Johnny, I've got a bit of a problem with you. You speak well, you're confident, you're clearly passionate about your subject. And I've got this reference here from your second school that's wonderful. It's fantastic. It's glowing. Talks all about the things that I'm seeing from you here. But now I've got this other reference that's from your current school, and it's the worst reference I've ever read. And I don't understand what's happened here." And I know that this probably wasn't the right thing, because I know you were meant to not talk about how bad things were at an academy. You were always meant to sort of talk positively. And I just sort of remember saying, "Well, thanks for bringing that to my attention." I said, "I think it's important for me to point out that I think I'm being bullied. I think I'm being bullied by the management structure. And I didn't know that they were giving these references that they were this bad." And of course, I go extremely flushed in the face. I'm deeply embarrassed and I'm deeply upset by this. And it feeds back into that. I felt like a prisoner, controlling and coercive behaviour. They've took this TLR off of me. And now I'm trying to leave. I always felt, so I actually wrote this on the Facebook group a few months ago. I gave my story and it really went well. I think it was around about 800, 900 likes, and the comments were wonderful. And I said at one point in this comments, I said, it was odd to me because I clearly wanted to leave and it seemed like they wanted me to leave. So why not just give a standard reference? There was so many of these things where I felt like I was a prisoner within the academy and I couldn't get out. How could I not be depressed after all of that?
100%, Johnny. And if you go into the complexity of toxic trauma bonding, and the parallels that can be drawn here are huge. Anybody would think, why are they not encouraging you? Why are they not making damn sure that reference was written just on the right side of what they needed to get you out? And that's, if we go back to that abusive partner, why are you beating this person up? Why have you not kicked them out of the house? Because there is some perverse pleasure that comes from that level of control if you are a toxic person and if you have that within you. Because as long as, and you want to know why you had such an important position in that school? Because you were the punch bag. You were the person who could be blamed. People could shroud their inadequacies by pointing down at the uncontrollable Jonny Millard. Well, that project would have gone all right if Johnny hadn't have put a spanner in the works. You served a purpose. I served a purpose. I was the person who did put the spanner in the works, the Luddite, the person who constantly sabotaged things with common sense. But you do serve a great role in a school if you do that, because you are the person they can use as smoke and mirrors to go, it would have worked had it not have been for Johnny. So I know that might sound really weird to listeners, but if you've been in it, it makes absolute sense, doesn't it, Sarah?
There's always a whipping boy, in my experience, or girl, but there is always a whipping boy. There has to be. There has to be for certain schools with that sort of culture to work. And I've just written so many things down whilst you've been talking, Johnny, and I've been listening about culture and ego and intimidation being at the forefront of what you've experienced. as opposed to respect and good quality leadership. And it's breaking my heart. I know you're all right, but it's breaking my heart listening to what you went through. But it's also making me sad because I know there's so many other people going through that exact same thing as well.
And I think some of the things that I went through perhaps are exceptional. I think they probably were getting to the point of being some of the worst things that can happen. I'm not saying the worst, because if there is somebody who is listening to this, and I think I've probably got one final story that may be the worst in some respects, or certainly the most perverse. But there are people who will be going through things that I went through. And obviously I've listened to the other podcasts with Vicky Thurkettle and James Terry, and there's so many things that they said that really resonated with me. And I found it quite powerful to hear what they were saying. And I'd like to think that some of the things I'm saying could be quite powerful to other people. If you are going through something on this scale or even worse, there is always a way out. You have it within you to find a way out. And that's a wonderful thing if you can do so. And I encourage you to do so. I really do, because I believe people are capable of anything in the right circumstances. So if you're in a situation that you feel you can't get out of, you can. You absolutely can, and you need to get out of it for your own sake. But the final story, I suppose, that would lead us very nicely, if you like, into the auxiliary cable incident is, it ties up because it was May. I know it was May 2019. It was probably the saddest day of my life in many respects. And there's a certain sadness to this because it was May the 19th. It was I believe it was a Monday. And I didn't go in that day. And I actually was ill. I was actually ill. I'd got a bit of a cold. I think I'd got a bit of a flu, and I didn't go in. And my mom, because I was living at this particular point in time. Me and my partner were in between two different houses, and I had to just briefly live at my mom's house. And my mom's house was only a couple of roads away from my nan and granddad's house, her mom and dad's house. And I'm lying in bed. It's about 12 o'clock. I am genuinely ill. My mom calls me and she says, "Johnny, go over to your granddad's because he called me. He says he's not feeling very well. You need to go over there and see if he's okay." And I said, "Okay, yep, no problem, Mom. Okay, I'll get some clothes on." About 10 minutes later, my mom called me and she sounded much more harried and said, "Johnny, have you gone over to the house yet? Well, your granddad isn't picking up the phone." And I remember at this moment thinking something really serious is going on here. Now, just put this into perspective. What I went through in the next few hours would never have happened had I just been at school. I drive over to my nan and granddad's house, which probably only took me 30 seconds because it was so close. And my granddad was in the chair right in the window, the front room window, and I'm banging on the window. I'm like, "Granddad, Granddad." And he didn't move, and I immediately called 999. My nan lets me in the house, and 999 are saying, "Is the patient breathing?" I said, he's not, I don't think he's breathing. I remember clear as day thinking, I remember thinking, my granddad's passed away here. And I had to pull him off the chair, and I had to deliver CPR to my granddad for about 20 minutes. And I felt his ribs break under my own hands. It's tough for me to talk about this. One, I wouldn't have been in that situation had I just been at work that day, I think, really. I was ill, but if I was in a happy place, I probably would have just got through it. And sadly, my granddad did pass away that day. I was very close to him. But the worst part is, because of what I knew I needed to get out of this academy, I had a job interview the following day. So on the day that my granddad passed away, I had to then go and design a lesson because they called me. It was the most bizarre conversation I've ever had. I was on the front lawn of my nan and granddad's home. Spoiler alert, by the way, it's now my home. I own the home. I was on the front lawn. And I got a call. I answered the call because obviously I thought it might be related to something medical. You know. This school said, "Hi, you haven't responded to our email about coming to an interview tomorrow. We emailed you earlier today." And of course, I haven't picked it up. I remember saying, "Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I'm sorry about this. And my granddad's just passed away." And they were very much like, oh, well, don't worry about it. I'm ever so sorry to hear about that. You just do what you've got to do. And I went, no, I'll be there. I'll be there tomorrow. Because I was that determined to get out of this academy that despite going through one of the hardest and most upsetting things that I think anybody could ever go through, I knew I'd got the strength and resilience about me for the greater good. I just had to get out of this school. I just had to move on. So I had to go to this interview the next day. And I did. And lo and behold, I didn't get the job because they sent that reference again. So when I should have been grieving, I'm there trying to, still as a prisoner, try and get out of this academy. And, you know, we come back to that term integrity. And I believe that if you don't look after yourself, if you wallow for too long, you can end up going further downhill. So I made the tough decision, one, because I felt it was professionally correct, and two, because I think it was good for me. I decided to go back to work on the Thursday at the school that I was not enjoying. And there was the natural, you know, I remember the head, when me and my partner still talk to this day, and he may never hear what I'm about to say, but I remember me and my partner were in the car and he called me, and the way that he spoke to me in the phone was so disingenuous, so lacking in care. And he was going, oh, Jonny, oh, poor you, oh, Jonny, oh. And I remember thinking, I was doing certain signs, because I was in the car, it was on hands-free, and I remember doing certain signs at him, and my partner was just looking like, I know. You could hear in his voice he was saying the right things, but it wasn't from the heart. It was so surface level. And then I think even a few days later, he had a meeting with me and he said something like, I always wonder why it's you who has these things happen to them. I'm just there like, you are really perverse, aren't you? You are such an odd man. You know, you are very bizarre. And how you're getting it did feel like there was some sort of thrill or enjoyment that they got out of this. You know, like I say, this would have been the May of 2019. So this circumstances of this investigation were probably overlapping. So it probably concludes the story very, very nicely, is that around about this time, I think perhaps that was the catalyst. I can't remember the exact sequence of events, whether it was before my granddad's passing or after my granddad's passing. Frankly, that's an irrelevance. What is relevant is that something in me said, just get out of this academy, for goodness sake, take control of your life. That's when I spoke with the trade union. That's when I said, I want to get out of here. And that's when it was agreed that I could leave in the June of 2019 on gardening leave. And I was finally out of what I'd been through.
Thank you for listening to Jonny's story so far, and I'm sure, like myself and Sarah, you found it utterly captivating. You'll find the next chapter available to you straight after this episode, and we hope to see you on the other side.